What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. In this episode, we're going to do another DC versus MCU video, the DCEU versus the MCU. I've done a couple already. I did one Batman versus Superman versus Batman v Superman versus Civil War, and I did Man of Steel versus Iron Man, and then there was one that was just a general talking about all of it. Check those out if you want. This video in particular is going to be about Suicide Squad versus Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, how I pick which movies I'm going to go versus is I compare them to what similarities they have. Like Man of Steel and Iron Man, they kicked off that franchise, and BVS and Civil War were both pitting heroes against each other, and they came out around the same time. And then this one, we have a group of two groups of rogues who, or bad guys, however, villains, however you want to call it, who come together as a team to do something good. Okay, now, this whole video is going to be basically about character and the villain, because Suicide Squad was not terrible, okay? But it lacked in character, and the villain was atrocious. Guardians was amazing character, and the villain was great for almost the whole thing until the final end scene, which we all know. I love Guardians. I hate the ending. I can't stand the way that last confrontation with Ronan, with the whole dance thing. I can't stand how that played out. I understand Guardians was a comedy. I get it. But there was it was a serious comedy. You could take that movie serious until that scene. Ronan's reaction, all of it, I hated that. It was the worst part about Guardians to me. And the worst part about Suicide Squad to me was the Enchantress. I've said this before, they should have had a more grounded adversary for the Suicide Squad to go up against. It shouldn't have been a mystical, magical being, and it damn sure shouldn't have been someone who was so closely attached to the Guardians. To the Suicide Squad. Now, I understand why, because it was about controlling her and her heart and all this other shit. But you could have still had that and had her be part of the group and got rid of Katana, who was useless in that movie. I mean, most of the Suicide Squad was useless. You could have got rid of almost all of them or replaced them with anybody, and you wouldn't have even noticed. So they could have still did that thread with Enchantress and not had her be the villain. If you're going to have the Joker in this movie, he should have been a villain, or he should have been manipulating sides, manipulating whoever the villain is, manipulating Amanda Waller, and manipulating Harley Quinn. That's what we should have gotten. Joker as like a Hannibal Lecter, kind of, behind the scenes, pulling all the strings, and then a more grounded villain, Black Mask, and his crew, or whatever. You could pick any number of DC villains that you could have put in a role where it was like, okay, we have to get together a bunch of people to stop this shit. To save the city, not save the world or save reality as we know it. The first Suicide Squad, at the very least, should have been a more grounded villain. Guardians, it made sense. They're in outer space. They're fighting aliens and shit. And they all have powers. Suicide Squad doesn't. So fighting someone who had powers made sense for the Guardians. Doesn't make sense for the Suicide Squad, at least not in their first outing. Okay, so the villains, both of them, Ronan was good and scary for most of the movie, but I'm sorry, the ending ruined the character for me. And I don't say that a lot. I usually can live in a bad moment and say, okay, well, that moment sucked. But after seeing Guardians all the way through the first time, on every rewatch, something is taken away from Ronan, and now he's goofy to me because I just keep flashing to the scene at the end. And I really wanted Ronan to be scary, and he was scary for most of the movie, but I'm sorry, that end scene just killed it for me. So I'm going to give both of them a fail on the ultimate ending of the villain, but the Suicide Squad gets a bigger fail because their villain was garbage all the way through. Joker, You can't really consider him a villain of that movie, even though he is on an adversarial role. He's not in it enough for him to be considered the villain. But if you want to consider Joker and the Enchantress, then I'll put them on equal ground, because at least I liked their interpretation of the Joker, the little bit we saw. I liked Ronan most of the movie, but I hated the Enchantress, especially at the end, and I hated what they did with Ronan at the end. So both a fail on that one. As far as the characters go, Guardians, you get to know each one of these characters individually. By the end of the movie, you can tell me who each person is, what they're about, what even their purpose in the movie was. Like, was this guy supposed to be comic relief? You know, you can tell me about, you can even tell me a little bit of backstory on everybody in the movie universe. We have a good understanding for who they are. We like some of them. We dislike some of them. We like some more than we like others. Some of them we think are fucking awesome and cool. We're engaged. We want to see them. Every scene we want to see more and more of all of them. Not just Quill, not just Gamora, not just Rocket and Groot or Drax. We want to see each one of these characters. The more we see them, we want to see them more. Even Yondu and the Ravagers, you want to see them more. The Collector, you want to see him more. All of the characters in the movie, Thanos, the Other, Nebula, and she's a good part of the villain too, Nebula. I always overlook her because she's not the main villain of the piece, but she is a good villain in that movie too. So we have all of these characters that we want more of. The more we see of them, the more we want to see them. The more we see of them, the more we learn. Even if it's little by little, we learn about their character, who they are, where they come from, and what they're about. Every single one of them. I'm not going to go through them one by one on here, but I could. Suicide Squad, I'm not going to go by one either, because there's nothing to go one by one on. This is where they fail. The movie was about Deadshot. The movie was about Harley Quinn, Amanda Waller, Rick Flag. Everybody else was an ancillary character. They didn't matter. They were expendable. Every last one of them. I don't learn who Killer Croc is. I don't learn Katana. I learn tiny, tiny pieces of their backstory. And I don't get enough of them. I get no cool action with any of them. I get no cool Deadshot and Harley. That's it. That's all the cool action goes to them. All the best lines, all the best dialogue, whether it be comedic or not, goes to those two characters. Yes, Killer Croc has one or two throwaway funny lines. Captain Boomerang is funny a couple of times. And you want to see more, but you don't get it. You don't get more of them. You don't get to enjoy them. You don't care about any of these people by the end of this movie. And that's what Guardians did successfully. These are all people you're not supposed to care about. They're thieves and murderers and con men. Suicide Squad 2, they're all bad people. And in the beginning of these movies, you get that. Suicide Squad, you get that they're bad guys. Guardians, you even get that these are not really good people. By the end of the movie, though, there's an arc to the Guardians where you understand you're not supposed to like who they are. By the end of the movie, you love them all. Suicide Squad, same thing. In the beginning, you get that you're not supposed to like these people, and by the end of the movie, you still don't fucking like anybody. Maybe you like Harley because she's, Margot Robbie is the sexiest woman alive. Well, one of them anyway. Zoe Saldana would be another one. Rosario Dawson is another one. Anyway, I could go on and on about that. Jessica Alba. But not only is she, a looker, but she steals the movie Harley. We learn about her more than we learn about anybody else, even more than Deadshot. But we learn about Deadshot too. We know those two characters, and we do care about them by the end of the movie. They have story arcs. They're characters that are fleshed out that we care about by the end. But what about the rest of the team? That's why Suicide Squad is a fail compared to Guardians. Now, Suicide Squad is my second favorite out of the three that came out. It's better than Batman vs. Superman. Nowhere near as good as Man of Steel. It's still not a very well put together movie. Guardians, the more it went, I enjoyed it more and more and more. Suicide Squad was the opposite. When it started, I really liked it. And then as the movie went, I disliked it more and more. And then by the end, I couldn't wait to get out of the theater. Whereas Guardians, I stayed through the end credits, and I wish that there was a whole nother 20 minutes of the movie. So you see the difference. And I'm fans of both DC and Marvel. So I know a lot of you don't believe that, but I am. I want to like them equally. I wanted to like Suicide Squad more because I know those characters. I didn't know really, even though I'm a Marvel guy, I didn't really read Guardians growing up. I knew of them. I knew of Rocket more than anybody else. And Yondu I've seen many, many times in the comics. But I was not a fan of Guardians. I'm a fan of Batman and most of the villains in here. Not most of, but there were many Batman villains in it. And it has a Batman feel to it, the movie. So I really, really wanted to like it. But, it fell flat for me like most DC movies do. So Guardians definitely the better of the two films. To me, it felt like DC was trying to cash grab again, just like with BVS. And they were trying to say, let's try and replicate Guardians the best we can and try and cash in on that cash cow. Because they're acting like it's not, that these aren't good movies. These are good movies that they're copying. So if you're not making if you're copying another movie, but you're not making an equally or better quality product, equally as good or a better quality product, your movie will always be shit on and it will always fall waste and not be remembered by many, at least not in a good light. So I understand you wanting to take these ideas, it's what's hot, but make good movies out of them. David Ayer should have been in control of that movie, and he wasn't. And that's the biggest problem with DC and WB. WB is calling the shots. Warner Brothers is calling the shots. Not DC. The guys in the suits are calling the shots. Not the sweaty guys, the comic nerds with the comic book t-shirts. Those aren't the guys running the show, and they should be. They're running the show at Marvel for the most part. So, my point is, Guardians versus Suicide Squad, Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely the better movie. And that's it. You can market the same, because that's what Suicide Squad did. They marketed it the same. You can have the same ideas and the same types of characters and the same tone of the movie, just like Suicide Squad did. Took all that stuff from Guardians, which is fine. But if you don't make a quality movie, in the end, this is what will happen. Everyone will talk shit about your movie. Nobody will really want to see it again. It's not going to be around for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And it's just going to be reboot and remade and reboot and remade. Because if you keep making shit movies, no one will care. Marvel has made good movies. No matter how you feel about Marvel, no matter how you feel about superhero movies, no matter how you feel about the trope that Marvel, the formula that Marvel falls into, which is their biggest downfall, that and their villains, Marvel, is that they all fall in the same formula. They all feel kind of like similar movies, but they're all good movies. So you can have those missteps and people will still go and see them. All right, that's it for this video. I'll probably do some more in the future when Wonder Woman comes out, Justice League comes out. I'm sure I'll find somewhere to compare those as well, because from the looks of it, that's what Warner Brothers and DC are doing. Finding what works for Marvel, trying to do their own version, and it coming out to be a convoluted mess because there's no clear game plan. I'm sure you'll sound off. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. That's it for this video. I will see you next time.